Hello, my name is Ethan Chase, and I am a New York-based organization development coach, and I love to work with organizations to help them unleash their employees' full potential by transforming their cultures into great places to work. And I'm excited to invite you to today's video, which is how do entrepreneurial actions of companies and corporate initiatives potentially lead to peace all over the world? So I have done now on my YouTube channel 440 videos. And I can say with pretty certain confidence that I've never addressed a topic as important as this. So I've been in and around corporate America for 35 years. And there's been this thing that I've been wondering, which is how, if at all, can companies on the international stage exert influence to reduce violence? So, in other words, the correlation between peace and the private sector. So, how can companies positively impact peace and human rights? So, one of the main drivers of economic development that we know all over the world is the private sector's ability to create jobs and investments that are vitally important all over the world for state stability and security. But having said that, what is the purpose of the modern corporation, right? So we know that traditionally it was maximizing value. And that's what companies did. As they expanded internationally, they did so pursuing the cheapest labor markets to take advantage of in developing and third world nations, not socially conscious. They also raped and pillaged other countries' natural resources. So that was historically the approach of companies, right? The pursuit of maximizing shareholder value, quarter over quarter, year over year. But now in the 21st century, things have transitioned. The focus from shareholder value to stakeholder value. And what I have found in my research for this video is that there is an incredible lack of causal data between the role and the needs of the private sector, along with peaceful development, peaceful initiatives. There's been a lack. And so that's what I'm hoping today's video will spark, is some kind of debate. Because we know that in 21st century, there needs to be a more effective working relationship between the private sector, government entities, and other organizations to bring about a reduction in war. And we're seeing the complete opposite right now of that kind of global need. In fact, in places like the Gaza Strip and Israel, and we're seeing in Ukraine with the Soviet Union, and in fact, in many hotspots all over the world, we're seeing war proliferate. So, what, if anything, can companies do? What there is, in the research I've conducted, a lack of appetite among senior leadership in corporations to engage in the reduction in war in terms of peaceful initiatives. On top of that, oil and mining companies have greater responsibilities when they have direct relationships with conflicts. So they're not necessarily trying to promote peace because it's the antithesis of their vested interests. A third possible role for companies to support local peace activists and human rights defenders through charitable initiatives, right? So they may not directly try to impact peaceful outcomes in war-torn countries, but charitable set-asides organizations may be able to impact positively some kind of peaceful resolution. So I want to kind of walk you through what some of the governing bodies are, what some of the multinational initiatives are that maybe will spark, hopefully, in the 21st century organization, a focus on peace initiatives and being more socially conscious. There's a resolution adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations, September 25th, 2015, transforming our world. It's called the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So at this point, going into January 2025, we're literally at the halfway point of this agenda this 2030 agenda for sustainable development. I want to kind of explain to you a little bit about the overview of what that international initiative is. Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the preamble. This agenda, developed by the General Assembly of the United Nations, is a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity. It also seeks to strengthen universal peace in larger freedom. We, the United Nations, recognize that eradicating poverty in all its forms and dimensions, including extreme poverty, is the greatest global challenge and an indispensable requirement for sustainable development. Lofty ambition, the reality of if that's actually coming to pass, it's a work in progress. All countries and all stakeholders acting in collaborative partnership will implement this Agenda 2030 plan. We are, the United Nations, resolved to free the human race from the tyranny of poverty, and we want to heal and secure our planet. Okay. But is that the mandate of the 21st century multinational corporation who still has to achieve profit and operate in an international marketplace? Are those at diametric odds with one another? And this is a rhetorical question. I don't have the answer. I don't think you do. But isn't it time for the 21st century modern corporation to start thinking, rather than buzzwords like corporate social responsibility, more towards probity or a sense of having a moral compass? So I want to move beyond the preamble of the Agenda 2030. People is the first of the tripod of focus. We are determined to end poverty and hunger in all their forms and dimensions and to ensure that all human beings can fulfill their potential in dignity and equality in a healthy environment. This is not playing out in practical implementation in many spots all over the world. And we should talk about this and the contributing factor that the corporation is having in the inability to achieve this lofty ambition. So that's the first, is focused on people. The next is focus on planet. We, the United Nations General Assembly, are determined to protect the planet from degradation, including through sustainable consumption, production, sustainably managing its natural resources, taking urgent action on climate change so that it can support the needs of the present and future generations. This is not playing out on a broad enough scale. I'll give an example of an organization that does get it. And it's kind of predictable because of the company that we're talking about. Yvon Chouinard, founder of Patagonia, recent decision that was made by Yvon Chouinard to take the $3 billion savings, money in his family's accounts, and take those $3 billion and put it in a fund to be managed specifically to reduce the harmful impact of climate change. This is just part and parcel with what Patagonia did in its foundings in the 1970s. More companies need to think about the positive influence of their abilities on the planet. You only get one shot at this, and we're in dangerous territory. Prosperity. The General Assembly. We are determined to ensure that all human beings can enjoy prosperous and fulfilling lives and that economic, social, and technological progress occurs in harmony with nature. Not happening in so many war-torn hotspots all over the world. Peace. Okay. Sure. Let's go there. Let's talk about peace. We are determined to foster peaceful, just, and inclusive societies which are free from fear and violence. There can be no sustainable development without peace and no peace without sustainable development. So I'll ask the 800-pound gorilla in the room question, what the heck does the modern corporation have to do with this? Well, historically, that was their position. Nothing. The pursuit of profit, that's a responsibility for governments and other institutions, not companies. However, in the 21st century multinational corporation that's being populated now with less and less baby boomers and matures and more millennials and Gen Zs, they're placing a demand on organizations' values shifting from profit maximization to doing these positive things for people, planet, purpose. So the role that multinational corporations can play in addressing these strife and conflict in certain country regions, it's a world where many governments are unwilling or unable to protect their own people. So if a government can't protect their own people, the influence of multinational corporations is growing. We see this. We absolutely see this. There's always, in a power vacuum, an entity that steps forward. So in these countries that are now currently lacking a stable government, private corporations are stepping in. To do what? To serve their own vested interests, maximize profit. This is a problem. This is definitely a problem. And why do I say that? And I'll talk about it a little bit more, because war is good for big business. Truly is. So I've talked about the General Assembly and what their kind of focus is on this Agenda 2030 initiative. So I want to talk a little bit more about the United Nations and their initiatives. So the Department of Economic and Social Affairs of the UN, Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This is one of the key initiatives that is currently in progress all over the world. So I've mentioned the preamble. I've talked about the focus of the people focus, planet, prosperity, peace. And I want to get now to partnership, the partnership consideration in Agenda 2030. We're determined to mobilize the means required to implement the agenda. It's now in progress through a revitalized global partnership for sustainable development based on the spirit of strengthened global solidarity, focused in particular on the needs of the poorest and the most vulnerable, and with the participation of all countries, all stakeholders, and all people. To the extent that we can literally do a snapshot or a competitive score of countries' engagement in the 2030 agenda, you'd see a significant amount of disparity. So the interlinkages and integrated nature of the Sustainable Development Goals for Agenda 2030 are of crucial importance in ensuring that the purpose of the new Agenda 2030 is fully realized. If we realize our ambitions across the full extent of the agenda, the lives of all we will profoundly improve, yada, yada, yada. Great, okay. But again, I'll ask you, in practical implementation, just in terms of the sniff test, do you think something's kosher in the state of Denmark? I don't know. If you literally do a glance across the world and you look at all of the countries that are experiencing dictatorial regimes, the degradation in democratic institutions, the loss in power of the people, the damage done societally, I'd say that we're still floundering our way to progress. So I want to move on to something that I think bears some conversation. So there was an article going back to December 2018 that appeared in the African Journal of Business Management, again, December 2018. So literally 6 years ago. I want to touch upon this. The responsibility to promote sustainable development should be a joint effort amongst government, industry, and other organizations, because after all, they all share responsibility. Okay? Bear with me a second. Conceptual. So there are 4 concepts that in this study that was conducted on the impact of companies and peace initiatives. Corporate social responsibility, or if you think about what that means, organizations, companies, initiatives on doing good things in terms of the world's impact. Sustainability. What are our initiatives predicated on sustaining all of the natural resources in our planet? Sustainable development. What is the industrial development of initiatives around sustainability? And just peace. And so in the link down below, in the description, I will put the links to all of these resources so you can read some of these initiatives, but the information is still not clear on the degree of commitment that companies are making to achieve peace. To achieve peace. or if the 21st century socially conscious organization is just a dream that's not been fully realized yet. This is an initiative similar to the United Nations Agenda 2030. It's called the Global Impact. It's called the Global Impact. And the initiative of the Global Impact reach is to achieve what's called triple bottom line. What do I mean by that? I mean that companies are pursuing strategies that not only consider profit, which is one of the triple bottom line considerations, so profit, but also people and impact on the planet. You're going to hear this over and over from me. In my consulting practice, I'm always giving advice and counsel to companies how to rethink their culture and focus less on profit as the goal, but as profit as an outcome of doing business with ethics, integrity, and a moral compass. The Global Compact is one of two initiatives, again, with the United Nations Agenda 2030, that's out there in the public domain if any company is interested in playing an active role. So I want to go to the United Nations Institute for Training and Research to talk about business's role as a key stakeholder influencing sustainable development throughout the world. Companies who join the Business for Peace commit to paying heightened attention to the implementation of the UN Global Compact. Again, that's the second of these two initiatives. The first is Agenda 2030. The second is the United Nations Global Compact. The 10 principles in high risk and conflict affected areas, taking action to advance peace, either individually as an organization or working in collaboration with others, and on an annual basis to report back their progress. So that's an important step forward in terms of the key UN Global Compact initiative. So again, I will link this and the other resources in this video in the description if you want to take a look. But I said earlier something that is the 800-pound gorilla or 800-pound war machine in the room is war is big business, has been, will continue to be. And that's the particularly thorny challenge that societies face, countries are dealing with. So this article originally appeared, Cato Institute republished it, but corporate America benefits from the warfare state and everybody else pays for their actions. So this is a relatively new article published September 30th, 2021, that appeared in the American Conservative. And I want to read a little bit about it because it's important. So you may have heard of the famed military-industrial complex. So mid-1990s, the Berlin Wall falls. Ronald Reagan says, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. The Warsaw Pact had lost its purpose. The Soviet Union was on the brink of ruination. Colin Powell would soon think out loud that he was running out of enemies. It looked like America could finally pare down the massive war machine developed to contain the evil empire of the Soviet Union, as President Ronald Reagan famously termed the USSR. But then in August of 2021, Saddam Hussein, remember him? His country, Iraq, invaded another country called Kuwait. The MCs at a convention of military contractors publicly thanked Saddam Hussein. War again was on the national agenda. The Pentagon could count on increased military budget appropriations, much of which would be funneled to what Dwight Eisenhower famously termed the military-industrial complex. Look, it is incredibly profitable to gain or reap the rewards of members of society going against each other in war and killing each other. A decade later, private firms similarly feature in the global war on terror. Business included arms deals, support services, logistics, weapons, maintenance, military training, and security. The latter made infamous by Blackwater in Iraq. So you hear about wars. And I want to go, this is an American-focused article published in the American Conservative. but there are wars all over the world. But just to focus on America's involvement in the past few decades, Afghanistan alone ended up costing the American people over $2 trillion. Much of that money went to famed merchants of death, ultimately outfitting the Taliban's army after the Kabul, Afghanistan government fell. Writing for the Watson Institute's Cost of War project, William Hartung of the Center of International Policy recently offered a comprehensive assessment of who made how much over the last 2 decades. So when I say, is it time for the modern multinational corporation to be involved in peace? This is not the involvement I'm referencing. It's a depressing tale of corporate America doing well while the rest of America did extremely badly, bleeding and paying. That a few individuals and organizations, corporations profited so much it comes as no surprise, especially if you've watched my other videos on this YouTube channel, with the gross, disgusting pursuit of profit above all else. Since the American political system increasingly has been shaped to reward well-connected, well-heeled, the amount of money that Hartung talks about is obscene, just obscene. Corporations have been by far the largest beneficiaries of post-9/11 surge in military spending. Since the start of the war in Afghanistan, the Pentagon spending has totaled more than $14 trillion. 1/3 to 1/2 went to defense contractors. Some of these corporations earn profits that are widely considered legitimate. Other profits were the consequence of questionable or corrupt business practices that amount to, get ready, drum roll please, waste, fraud, abuse, price gouging, profiteering. So much spending in any form is bound to have negative consequence. Waste, fraud, and abuse has almost become a cliche in corporate America, a catchphrase for problems afflicting virtually every federal program, from housing, social welfare, economic development. Yet the military is unique, he writes, Hartung writes, a government institution with no civilian counterpart and special emphasis on secrecy. Taking these functions private creates additional challenges. So I really think it's important that we start to, again, consider the cause and effect, the contribution that corporations are making in either the proliferation of war and destruction of human life and natural resources, people, planet, or conversely, the tremendously transformative leadership-driven activities of a select few companies, corporations in trying to do good. Trying to do good. And that's important. So I mentioned the Global Compact before, and I read a little bit of a passage. That, in addition to the UN's Agenda 2030, is the largest initiative. The Global Compact advises that companies do accept and support, and they do promote a set of principles related to human rights, labor, environment, anti-corruption. It's based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Labor Organization's Declaration of Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work, the Rio de Janeiro Declaration on Environment and Development, and the UN Convention Against Corruption. So there are standards in place. The question is, do corporations want to follow them? And so moving on, there is a global compact that is being pursued. And I always say, if you're looking for countries or blocks of countries that are just as a whole, societally speaking, the interconnectedness of their social support networks, private, publicly traded companies, and other institutions, Nordic countries seem to have more blood, sweat, and tear equity in the game of having businesses practice ethical behaviors on a moral scale. So I want to talk a little bit about the 10 principles inspiring, guiding, and catalyzing change in Nordic countries. Sustainability begins with a principles-based approach to doing business. Corporate sustainability starts with a company's value system. So when companies that I coach and I consult with talk about their values and code of conduct, I really want to hold them accountable, because this is the end of the day total societal impact. A principles-based approach to doing business. This means operating in a way or ways that meet fundamental responsibilities in the areas of human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. Those are the 4 pillars of the Global Compact. And again, there are 10 principles that are associated with human rights, labor, the environment, and anti-corruption. And I want to focus a little bit on the Global Compact. 2,500 participants worldwide, over 160 countries, 350 plus participants in the Netherlands. The Netherlands, I have said, is really setting the standard, and it goes back societally to what Nordic countries focus on. You know, cradle to the grave democracy, a social support network, universal health care. Companies who want to do business in these environments already have a culture, moral construct that's been in their DNA from the societies that their employees and their executives and their business owners live in. So that's an important consideration. So again, what I wanted to do was just literally say, hey, we should really think a little bit as business owners, as executives, of people who are in the private sector, the impact of our actions in terms of the world in which we operate. This is important. It's timely. We talk about the 21st century transformational company. We talk about a lot of key demographic and other kind of transitions in our world. My question is, can a company, can their behaviors help to reduce poverty in developing nations? Can they reduce war? Instead of the historical deviant behavior, yeah, I said deviant behavior, of raping other countries' natural resources and taking advantage of abusing relatively cheap labor markets, all for the singular pursuit of profit above all else. I hope that this has been thought-provoking. And please, if you like the video, smash the like button, send me some comments. If any of my 440 videos should spark a conversation, I'm hoping this is it. And if you like the work that I'm doing, please be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, as that'll support me in the initiatives to provide more compelling content that you'll want to see in the future. Thank you. And again, I hope this has been, as far as topics, something that's been pretty important to you and you deem worthwhile of further consideration, conversation. Thank you.